jungle, concrete, jungle, it's a concrete, jungle, it's a concrete, jungle.
I see the lost cries. Brothers is dying from the 12 shots of Zion. Homicide multiplying in public townhousing. Project their minds and soundings. Lambs led to the slaughter for sacrificial violence. James Child, Factory Council, holy Molly at the bird camp. Friends fulfilling the words of the prophets. Our cities be cursed with guns, crack holes, and fools with bots. Intoxicated doors with the sickness of apocalypse. All these dreams jungle concrete.
Wake up, black people, wake up. All I'm gonna make them oppressed with. Step our neck. Down here so that the ghetto we are crying here. We have to get up, stand up, turn back to the true trend. To the more side, everlasting. And this out. And this out. Fire above them. And this out. Fire above them. Fire above them. The mighty lions from Zion ignite flammable iron, tossing fire, leaving Babylon trying to escape is futile. Who child, this country jungle is too wild. That's why we got more than two styles. To adapt in the situation, too shy. And though the road is rocky, I'm ready to try the next mile to bring sight to the blind man and sound to the left child. We will survive in this country wilderness. Swimming through the waters of Babylon like a rebel fish. Junglist, specialist, predator and survivalist. Spitting heaven's fire from his lips. Burn a slave driver.
All I see is confusion. All I see is
Welcome, listeners, to Time for an Awakening on Black Talk Radio Network. New media for the new millennia. This is a history and current events program from a cultural perspective. We find this program necessary because Hosea 4:6 states, "My people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge." But we as a people can turn this around. Proverbs 4:7 states, "Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get an understanding." Again, welcome to the program this evening with your host, Brother Elliot and Brother Reggie. The number to reach us to join the conversation this evening is 215-253-7263. That's 215-253-7263. The listen-only line, if you don't have computer access to a smartphone, iPad, desktop, or any other device, is 605-562-3140. That's 605-562-3140, and that access code is 958590 and pound. Again, that access code is 958590 and the pound sign. And tonight, as it's been the past month or two, we will take calls from the conference line if you choose to participate from that line. And you can do that by hitting *61 from the conference line, and we'll be able to see you and page you in for your comments or questions. Again, that's *61 from the conference line. We're streaming live at several locations. www.blacktalkradionetwork.com/Time for an Awakening. That's www.blacktalkradionetwork.com/Time for an Awakening. Time for Awakening is also at you can log in on the Facebook page of the program, and on the Listen tab you can listen to us streaming live straight from the Facebook fan page. You can go to timefораwakening.com. That'll take you straight to Time for Awakening Media, and you can listen to it from that location. Or if you have TuneIn, you can log in on TuneIn. That's a free app, and you can download it on your phone or any of your devices. And in the search engine, just type in Time for an Awakening radio program, and you can stream it live, even into your car. That's Time for an Awakening radio program with the live stream on TuneIn. Drop us an email at timeforanawakening@gmail.com. That's timeforanawakening@gmail.com. As I mentioned before, Time for Awakening has a fan page on Facebook. Just log into that Facebook search engine and type in Time for an Awakening. There you'll always see interesting content being posted daily by Brother Reg. And before you leave that page, just hit that like button. It's Time for an Awakening radio program with the fan page on Facebook. And Time for Awakening Media has also been launched. In your address bar, just type in timeforanawakening.com. That's timeforanawakening.com, and that'll take you straight to Time for an Awakening Media. There you'll see more articles, blogs, and podcasts of the program that you can download and share with your friends. So make that one of your favorites. Put it in your address bar. That's timeforanawakening.com. That's timeforanawakening.com. Will take you straight to Time for an Awakening Media. Tonight, we have a special guest joining us. Dr. Mawiyah Kambon will be with us this evening. Dr. Kambon will talk about solutions for healing and liberation for black people throughout the diaspora, and also the power of African women as healers. We'll be back to start the conversation with Dr. Kambon after we take a break and hear from our sponsors.
Mr. Moderator, our distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, our friends and our enemies. Everybody is here.
You are tuned in to the Black Talk Radio Network. For podcasts and live program scheduling, visit us on the web at blacktalkradionetwork.com.
All Insurance Incorporated, an African-American owned and operated insurance agency in business for over 20 years, located at 231 Southeastern Road in Glenside, PA, with other offices in Germantown and West Philadelphia. Call now for commercial insurance quotes, homeowners insurance quotes, automobile insurance quotes, notary and tax services, representing over 15 major A-rated insurance companies, offering a discount on all notary services when you call in for a free quote. Call this number, 215-885-2444. That number is 215-885-2444. 215-885-2444. All Insurance Incorporated.
Before your roof becomes unruly, call Dooley. Dooley Brothers, specializing in shingle, rubber roofs, gutters, downspouts, and vinyl sidings. Call for your free estimate today. 215-224-3882. That's 215-224-3882. Dooley Brothers Roofing, the roofing experts you can trust. That number again, 215-224-3882. 215-224-3882. Before your roof becomes unruly, call Dooley.
Are you one of the million conscious black people who believes that we have the collective wherewithal to affect real economic and political change? If so, band together in solidarity by joining the 1 million conscious black voters and contributors. Choose leadership that will work for the best interests of black people. We can no longer sit on the sidelines and expect things to change for the better without a significant number of black people playing a pivotal role in that effort. Will you be one of the million that recognizes that black dollars matter? Are you that person who believes it's time to leverage our votes for reciprocity from politicians? If so, then you should join the 1 million conscious black voters and contributors. With members in 29 states and growing every day, we encourage you to sign up and help spread the word by sharing our website, IamOneOfTheMillion.com. That's IamOneOfTheMillion.com.
Antiquity to the present. Our people need to develop a new paradigm. It's time for an awakening. Sundays, 7 p.m. with your hosts, Elliot and Reggie. Welcome back to Time for an Awakening. And before we get started this evening, Brother Reg?
Yes.
Anything going on in the community that Any announcements or anything that we need to know about?
No, not at this point in time.
We'll be running some promos tonight, too, for the State of the Black World Conference, which is November 16th to the 20th in Newark, New Jersey. You can go on, log on to letsbuyblack365.com. That's letsbuyblack365.com, and to register for the State of the Black World Conference. And I think we might have a special code, too, that we can type in for the Time for Awakening radio program. I'll have all of those details by the next program that you hear. But tonight, we have a special guest joining us. Oh boy, I'm getting a little feedback, but let me try to adjust some levels here. Dr. Mawiyah Kambon is with us, African-centered child and family psychologist, and former past president of the National Association of Black Psychologists, is with us this evening to talk about her work and the power of African women as healers. Dr. Kambon, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Elliot. I'm glad to be here.
How are you?
I am great. I'm
glad that you're joining us this evening. You're here with myself and Brother Reg.
Good evening, Dr. Kambon. Glad to have you on.
Thank you, Brother Reggie. I'm glad to be here.
Dr. Kambon, before we get started with a lot of our conversation, because it might bounce around to a lot of different topics dealing with the mental health of our people, it's kind of ironic that last week we had some young ladies on that has an organization at Delaware State University, a historically black college, that was dealing with the mental health of young black women and having a symposium on the campus, which is going on this weekend. And then tonight we have you on to kind of continue this conversation and go a lot deeper than what we did last week. In conversations that we've had previously, I told you that we had other people in your field on in the past to talk about the mental state of our people, and that's something that our people really never talk about, even in families, private conversations sometimes, the trauma that we suffered and still suffer as a people. But before we open up that conversation, Dr. Kambon, talk about your work. You come from an activist family, your husband, your daughter, your son. I mean, I just want to say this personally, that you're really blessed. Most families, if the husband is an activist, the wife might be supportive, but she might not be. The children might not be. It's always maybe one, possibly two individuals in families that kind of continue a work or continue a path. But you have been blessed to have almost all of your family, if not all of them, active in our struggle in some form or fashion. So I just want to say that before you talk about your work in particular.
Well, I thank you, and truly I do feel blessed to have most all of them. We have 3 children. 2 of them are very active. The oldest is a physician and probably came through earlier in terms of trying to deal with all these issues, so it may have had a harder impact on her that she's not involved in this way. She is a medical doctor, however, and feels that she's doing her part in that way.
Okay.
But the others are, as you said, very much active and see that as their life's work. So we are very blessed. And I think that speaks to, and I'd like to say a little bit about that because I think it speaks to the mental health of our people, is that we have to attempt to raise our families in an understanding of who we are as a people and what that means to be Black African, and that how we live that out. And I think probably my husband and son typify it mostly, is unapologetically in the fight to never compromise in that movement, in that belief, in that understanding. And so when you try to raise your children with that, realizing that they're up against a world, including their own people, who are willing to make compromise And I think that compromise contributes to the state of where we are as a black people.
Dr. Kambon, when you say compromise, go a little bit further in what you mean in reference to that. I think I know where you're going, but talk about it.
And I think, don't understand the kinds of things that we do to contribute to our own oppression.
Okay.
Certainly, in this world, we're not all blessed to be able to work for ourselves. And so that's one of the first compromises, because we're always under enslavement. When we work for somebody else, we contribute to our oppression in so many ways, that as we work for someone else who uses their work to oppress our people, we contribute to that. Many of our people are very unhappy in the jobs they have, because that's all it is. It's not a meaningful way to liberation. And so when you're not working toward your own liberation, you're usually working toward your oppression or your enslavement. And so that's the biggest compromise that we have as a people. There are other ways that since our enslavement, we were here, and I hear this dichotomy in our community between perspectives, in that when we came here, and did we come here through enslavement or were we here before? It's not an either-or situation. It's a both-and. We did help to settle this land, and we were all over the world in every continent. Mm-hmm. However, the large majority of us did get here through the enslavement period. And even if we were here before, many of our people got caught up in it, being captured by what we termed the indigenous people, who are the Native Americans. We were enslaved by them as well as by the Europeans, which has had an ongoing devastating impact on us. And when you do that, just like the treaties that the so-called Indians went through that never were respected, never were honored, our people have never been honored with liberation, even though we were freed from enslavement. And you have to be liberated in order to be free. And we have never been free. Yet we're under the illusion that we're free because we're able to participate in some ways in a system that continues to oppress and suppress us.
Dr. Kambon, I was looking at the Association of Black Journalists website, and they talked about emotional emancipation of our people and starting to free ourselves, and it has to start with the mind, of the oppression that our people have suffered since we've been here. And it was what they termed a non-exhaustive list of evidence of this. It kind of starts out with the cumulative effect of 400 years of historic and continuing trauma that must be addressed. Open that up for me. Talk about some of that from your perspective, and I'll deal with some of the things that they list here. But talk about that and how it has really affected our people. Some people think that slavery is over. It ended in 1865. But talk about it from your perspective.
Right. You can write a document or a legislation. And as I said, the U.S. has written many treaties, none of which they have respected or followed. And because there was legislation that allowed us to get off the plantation in the way it was, the mental destruction that occurred during that time and since has continued. So when you talk about this Association of Black Psychologists, and I want to define what that is in a few minutes.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yeah. We have this emotional emancipation circles that we work with in conjunction by the Community Healing Network that basically started it under the President Enola Aird. And the purpose of it was to identify people in our community, who is basically all of us, who have never really been healed from the trauma that we have experienced while living here, whether we saw ourselves enslaved or even new Africans come into this country. There is a racist mentality in this country that has not died, that continues to exist, and we continue to mentally die under it. We point to those who have been able to make it, but even if they tell the truth, they are always fighting this racist feeling above us that continues to keep us from seeing, allowing us and allowing ourselves, not them allowing us, but allowing ourselves to rise above, to create, to develop the things that will lead us in the direction that we need to live, be led in, which is total liberation for African people. Nobody can give that to you. We have to take it ourselves. And so the community emotional emancipation circles give people an opportunity to release some of that trauma, to talk about it, and to realize that they're not alone. As we said, it's at the root of what ails our community and is toxic in every kind of way. And overcoming and overturning that is the key to transforming our lives. So that's one of the things that comes out of that particular forum.
You know, I think you're probably on the cell phone, Dr. Kambon, and it's breaking up slightly, but we'll try to fight through it because it might clear up on
No, I'm on the phone landline, so I can't take it off speaker. That'll be better. Is this better?
Yes. Oh, great. Okay, that's great. Okay, Dr. Kambon, I'm also reading that numerous studies have documented the damaging impact that the personal experiences of racism can have on our children, black children, and their academic attitudes and performances in school, which leads them to be labeled in all types of learning disabled and ADD, things of that nature. Talk about, because you're a child psychologist in your field and also a family psychologist, so how do these things translate into behaviors in families where our children really don't know how to cope with racism, and the parents never really learn how to cope with it or face it as a collective? Talk about how this translates in families and how it translates in behaviors.
Well, again, let's start with families first, because we have an identity as a people. But our families, because we live in a alien society, tend not to promote that verbally in terms of their teachings. So we may engage our children in some cultural activities some of the time, like they go to all-black church or they live in an all-black community, but nobody really talks about our identity in terms of our culture, the norms, and how those things help us to be resilient. And so we accept ourselves in a minority status. When we do that, and then we send our children to school and they experience racism and other things, we often tell them that that's just the way it is and they got to get over it. Or we don't tell them anything at all and let them go through it, feeling that pain. And so at a very early age, and Jawanza Kanjufa writes in his book, can't think of the name, but he talks about at grade 3, our children begin, especially the boys, begin to drop out of school emotionally because they don't see themselves there. It's not in the textbook. It's not in what the teacher says. There's no praise. I was watching a video where a school in Texas put all the black children in tracking in the CD group and all the white children, regardless of test scores, in the AB group. The children can see this. And so how do they respond to that? It first starts internally. They begin to feel less than, inferior, and they're told they're inferior. We have college students black students who are being told that your people never contributed anything. Mm-hmm. You begin to accept that as you look around the world and you don't see us being able to rise above this. And when you internalize it, a normal reaction is to rebel against it. And so we see young people, especially young males, dropping out of school at a young age because somehow, resiliently, they feel like I'm not staying here to deal with this. And so what alternatives do they have? They tend to go into gangs because they can feel a sense of belonging. Because also they don't get that from home because the parents have been beat down so much that they don't support the children in terms of how they're feeling. Just get over it. This is the way the world is. You just got to deal with it. And it's not the way we need to be raising our children. So as we talk about children, we got to realize that the families are at the forefront of bringing, because we are the ones that bring the children into the world and nurture them before they go to school. And it begins there. It begins in the womb. It begins before the womb. It begins in who you choose as a partner, whether or not you're going to create a holistic, healthy environment for your family. So, yes, the children respond by either dropping out emotionally or fighting emotionally. And who do they fight? The people who are closest to them, so that they can't or don't feel they can lash out at the oppressors because it hasn't been identified to them, for one. But the other is that they don't know what's going on. They just know how they feel, and they don't feel good. They're angry about it. Their self-esteem is low. And then the other point you brought up was this whole notion of labeling. And I certainly see this in the field of psychology, that you label this false ID called attention deficit disorder, which was by the author in his deathbed. He stated that it's a made-up term. He made it up because it led to him getting money from the pharmaceuticals that could then give drugs to the children. And so that then becomes another issue about the industry, the pharmaceutical industry, and how they're committing genocide against our people. And since our people always looking for healing, they believe in whatever the doctor says, no matter what color he is. And the doctors do not do the research on the drugs. They just give the drugs that the pharmaceuticals recommend. And so we have whole populations of people, of our people, not all people in particular, but I mean in general, but our people in particular, who are raised up on all kinds of medications that were unheard of 50 years ago. The psychotropics tend to be the deadliest. 1/3 of the population. So we have, so I want to speak to that a minute. We have 400,000 people in this country who die of hospital errors. We have 1/3 of the population who die from drugs dying of psychotropic drugs. How could that happen? These are not people who had physical ailments. So how could the drugs that are supposed to help them then destroy them? Because it was never intended to help them. We have to realize where genocide is. If a people don't like you, why would they give you something to cure you?
We go. Brother Reg, you want to jump in, or you want to take a break and then continue it after the break?
We could go to the break. I'm enjoying the conversation. Dr. Kambon is giving the listening audience a lot of wisdom and facts and information that we need to take heed to. So we could take a break and I'll come back. And I have a few questions for our guests.
We'll take a brief break, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. And you can be involved, too, at 215-253-7263. That's 215-253-7263. Join us conversation with Dr. Mawiyah Kambon. We'll be right back.
Okay.
You are tuned in to the Black Talk Radio Network. For podcasts and live program scheduling, visit us on the web at blacktalkradionetwork.com.
All Insurance Incorporated, an African-American owned and operated insurance agency and business for over 20 years, located at 231 Southeastern Road in Glenside, PA, with other offices in Germantown and West Philadelphia. Call now for commercial insurance quotes, homeowners insurance quotes, automobile insurance quotes, notary and tax services, representing over 15 major A-rated insurance companies, offering a discount on all notary services when you call in for a free quote. Call this number, 215-885-2444. That number is 215-885-2444. 215-885-2444. All Insurance Incorporated.
Before your roof becomes unruly, call Dooley. Dooley Brothers, specializing in shingle, rubber roofs, gutters, downspouts, and vinyl sidings. Call for your free estimate today. 215-224-3882. That's 215-224-3882. Dooley Brothers Roofing, the roofing experts you can trust. That number again, 215-224-3882. 215-224-3882. Before your roof becomes unruly, call Dooley.
What if we didn't let mainstream media pretend hundreds of black leaders don't exist as their way to prevent us from realizing our collective struggle and our strength? Picture it. If we really knew, what would real black unity look like? Visualize it. What if the black world could put aside our differences and come together to not just talk, but to truly create solutions? Converge on Newark, New Jersey for the historic State of the Black World Conference, the interorganizational black unity event of the century. Join us November 16th through 20th, 2016. 5 full days of strategic and tactical collaboration sessions to take back control of our communities and resources worldwide. Don't just wait for someone else to solve our problems. Become a part of the solution. The State of the Black World Convention, November 16th through 20th, 2016, Newark, New Jersey. Register today at www.letsbuyblack365.com/event/SOBWC.
Peace. This is Professor Griff from Public Enemy. People keep saying black people need to do this and black people need to do that. Well, frankly speaking, I think it's a whole lot of talk, a whole lot of philosophy, and a whole lot of head nodding. But where is the action? I'm suggesting everyone that's within the sound of my voice, we need to get on board with this national black economic empowerment movement. Let's Buy Black 365.com. That's Let's Buy Black 365.com. This is Professor Griff from Public Enemy, and I'm out. Peace.
Antiquity to the present. Our people need to develop a new paradigm. It's time for an awakening. Sundays, 7 p.m. with your hosts, Elliot and Reggie.
History is a clock that people use to tell their political and cultural time of day. It is also a compass that people use to find themselves on the map of human geography. History tells of people where they have been and what they have been, where they are and what they are. Most important, history tells a people where they still must go, what they still must be. The relationship of history to the people is the same as the relationship of a mother to her child.
Welcome back to Time for an Awakening, and we're joined in conversation this evening with African-centered child and family psychologist Dr. Mawiyah Kambon is with us this evening in conversation. And you can join the conversation, too, by dialing 215-253-7263. That's 215-253-7263. Brother Reg.
Yes, Dr. Kambon, I'm enjoying the conversation, and I also want to echo a sentiment that Elliot stated at the beginning of the program. I can see the influence of your husband and yourself in your daughter, Nataki, and how she moves around, communicates, and the work she's doing. So I want to give a big shout out to you and your husband for producing a great sister, Sister Nataki, that's carrying on the tradition and moving things forward. I'm always excited when I see younger people that are in the mix and are doing it the right way. So I just want to give you that credo, the kudos right now when we have you on our program. You're a woman.
Well, we thank.
Go ahead, my sister.
I was saying thank you. As my husband said, we brought them into the world, and Nataki, for one, when she was born, lifted her head and looked all around, and people said, this child is going somewhere.
Right.
So we're glad that the ancestors were blessed us for these children to choose us, to give us an opportunity to share.
Great. You're a black woman here in this country, the United so-called States of America, and we know that religion, I just want to start off with Christianity, has done a great disservice to black women through its theology of limiting and making women, but especially black women, in an inferior status, and based on that statement, taking away their birthright and their special divinity that a lot of black women don't even know that they have and haven't been able to tap into, based on a lot of theology that's thrown around. I'd like you to talk about it because I think it's very important when you're talking about family. I think, and I'm included in this, it took me a while to grow and take off some of the vestiges of Eurocentric thought, even though I didn't think I had it, but I did take a lot of those things off my mind and deal with it is. I want you to talk about the impact that religion has on blocking the ascension of black women and what they're doing. The black women are still doing what they have to do, and I've always backed up our family, black family, whether the men were in the household or not. And that can be read historically, but I think it's important for men, boys, and girls that don't know, and women that don't know, that they have a special place in our struggle for liberation, and they have a divine special divinity that's been given to them and that they need to learn how to tap into. I would like you to talk about that.
Let me talk about it this way. Dr. Ben, as you know, always talked about the power of the African woman. He, in particular, when he took people to ancient Kemet, always talked about the African queen stretched out above the wall, who was held, well, not necessarily held up, but the warrior was under her with his hand at her breast and at her vagina, understanding the power that exists therein. As you know, I don't know if you know, but I'm going to be speaking next weekend, Sunday, at PLM in Baltimore on this topic in particular, the African woman, the source of our power. Because we have been in this society, and as we know, the predominant use of enslavement, of the power of enslavement, was to use the Christian church and the Bible against us, and that we believed in it so much we began to cower from it. It did take away from the power of the African woman, but she is not dead, nor is that power suppressed, because it is just been what we might say dormant, because we are now rising again. But it's important for African women to study, to understand our story, that we were here in the beginning. We need to understand the powers of Ma'at and Aset and understand why it was the African woman who held the spirituality of our people. She was the first priest. She was the first mother. She was the first nurse. And I'm going to be spending a lot of time talking about that in this lecture at the PLM, which is in Baltimore, Maryland, next November 6th, that's Sunday. And that's at, I'm trying to see it begins at 4 o'clock p.m. on Towanda Avenue, 4000 Towanda Avenue, in Baltimore, 4100 Towanda Avenue in Baltimore, Maryland, next Sunday, November 6th. At that time, we will be talking about that. I have a slideshow that goes along with that. You're very right. And my premise is until the African woman, as I said before, understands her power, that we will always be in a lesser position. It is her power that's going to help raise us. So that is not, and I certainly want people to understand, that is not at all a feminist perspective. It's an African perspective, because Africans have always known the power of the African woman. And once others knew, because other people have our scrolls, other people have our scrolls in the depths of the Vatican, in the depths of the London's palace. They know our story, and they know the power of the African woman. If they can begin to separate us from our men, then they have power over us. If our women don't understand that power is not to suppress her man, but to walk on side. So African women knew that sometimes she ruled at the side of her men, sometimes she had to rule in front, sometimes she had to rule behind. But whatever role was necessary, she was prepared to do it. And she called on our ancient spirits and ancestors to assist us in our journey. And that was her divine role. So as our men went off to war or to take care of the business of the governance of the villages, of the societies, her role was to ensure that spirit would be there to protect our societies, to protect our children, to protect our way of life. When you begin to damage those things and damage her, then we cannot survive. So yes, it is very important that the African woman stand up and understand her role. And we see glimpses of that all the time. We just, because of the state we're in, there are times when our brothers feel like, oh, she's just trying to overpower me, or, some street terms, or, just put me down. When maybe she doesn't know how to move it forward, but her spirit is saying, I need to take charge now. Not all the time, but in order to move this family, I am the foundation of this family. My mate, my husband, has certain responsibilities to undergird, to support, to protect. And when we live in a foreign society, many of those roles get blurred in terms of our men who are warriors not being able to protect their families the way they want to, and therefore, like the children, feel abused and take that abuse out in abusive ways on their own family or on their own community, when they are truly warriors and need to be able to identify who their enemy is and war against them, but not their women, not their children, not their own communities. That has to stop.
So I'm gonna, since you laid it out so eloquently, I'm gonna bring it on home, and what you just stated, and I'm talking about a 2016. You have people that are the Pan-African. I'm just gonna deal with Pan-African community right now. That state, and I'm talking about men that state they have an understanding of some of the things you talked about. But when it comes to a hierarchy in dealing with women, they still have a Eurocentric mindset. When I say Eurocentric mindset, Europeans or white men, they still, 2016, look at their women as property. That's it. It's in their literature, it's in their history, and it's a fact. It's not a statement that I'm making up. Even though they gain incremental rights, that's why you have that feminist movement. But when we look at black women and white women, when society goes or things go bad, those white women still could go back to white men that are leading in the power structure. That's not the same situation for our black sisters. So I just want to, what can black men do to help and aid our black sisters in being able to attain and dig deep into the levels and the skill sets that they have inside them that they're not being supported at this point in time?
You know, Brother Elliott mentioned before in terms of talking about the Community Healing Network, our people have to go through a healing process, men and women and children, because our roles are blurred and obscured. And so brothers and sisters need to be able to talk without feeling that somehow they're compromised by exposing the vulnerabilities of not being able to do what it is that they were sent here to do or believe that they're to do. So there are times, as I said before, when the women have to be in the forefront. There are times when the women are behind. But whatever role it is, we need to be doing it together. And you're absolutely right. Because our men don't feel empowered, they often take that power over against their sisters who are there. And the sisters cower and therefore don't step up even when they know that they're right, because they don't want to, what's the term, emasculate the man. You know, but it's a combination, you know, that we have to begin to have a dialogue within us that if you understand, because you are studying what has happened to us, then you will understand what has happened to you personally. How black men can support black women? First, you know, many more black men are reading our history and our culture than black sisters, than our sisters are. So they need to have more reading circles in the home. I hear sisters say they don't want to read, you know. They don't want to participate in a lot of the conscious movement because it's not without its flaws. They have to have the knowledge. It's already in our spirit, and that spirit is beginning to manifest. And so brothers can help by bringing out the literature, taking them to events. For example, as I mentioned, I'm going to be speaking next Sunday, but Saturday is also Brother Imhotep at that same event, speaking on some of these same issues about the enslavement of our people. So I really encourage people to come out for the whole weekend and go to Power Pack Weekend and see both of us. He's speaking Saturday, I'm speaking Sunday. And I'm hoping that he's going to be talking more about what you're asking about. What brothers? He's in a positive male relationship. You know, I am blessed to have the man in my life that I have, who, you know, we're on the same path, but we're not the same. We're different. You know, I'm a Aries. I'm full of fire. He's, you know, earthbound, very settled, very stable, very, very direct. And so we have to rely on each other. There are times when I set some fire on him, and there's times when he throws some of that earth on me to, you know, cool me out. And so we can't be offended when our mate points out things that are going to help us, because she or he ought to be presenting in a loving way. And when it doesn't come out that way, instead of getting upset, you point it out to them. Whoa, where is that coming from? Because usually it's coming from the outside and coming in. And if you're aware of those things, you work on them together. That allows you to build together. So our brothers have to be willing to help with the building process and not always being out there looking like or trying to look like he's got it all together, when the same things that are affecting the sisters are affecting him too. It's affecting all of us. It's affecting our children. And by fronting, is what I call it, we do a disservice to our whole community. So I encourage people to remember that, you know, it's real important for the whole family. You know, we are in over 40 years of marriage. We've been together 42 years. And, you know, we haven't had, you know, people talk about having hard times. Well, maybe financially, but in terms of our relationship, we've not had hard times. Because somehow we were given some insights, and that probably, I can't tell you where it came from, that we never wanted to hurt each other. So we never get into arguments, silly arguments. And we've been building together from the beginning, you know, so our values or beliefs are similar. You know, I'm not out there trying to make sure that he can buy me a Mercedes or diamonds or things like that. And it's not, so those are not things I believe in, even though I do believe our people are supposed to be wealthy. I don't believe that we ought to be spending that wealth on our own oppression by giving that money to people who don't look like us for things that have less value than we pay for them. And that's how we feel good, by what we can show, what we have, instead of what's inside. And that's a psychological. And I'd really like to tell you, you know, if I have a little bit of time, about what black African psychology is, because it's very different from white psychology, if I may.
No, and I'm glad you said that, because, you know, you're not talking about any sort of philosophy from Descartes. You're not talking about Freud and, you know, all the rest of the guys who had, with their premises of their statements as far as psychology goes, they had their own issues that they were trying to figure out when, you know, they're trying to. I look at a lot of the European psychologists of testing other people to try to figure out, you know, what's wrong with them. And I definitely would like you to talk about black psychologists. I think it's something in our community that we're always looking at European theology, European philosophers, European psychologists for the answers for black folks and African folks, and it's just not a good match, and we will never be able to really figure ourselves out. We're dealing with people that deep down inside always have a biasness when it comes to, you know, our people. And definitely, the floor is yours to bring that to our listening audience.
Well, certainly you understand that theirs is a pathological model, and it wasn't based on us in the first place. So therefore, when you have people who don't have your worldview trying to determine from their perspective what's wrong with you, and when African psychology asks the question, why is this occurring? Not what's wrong with you, because from African worldview, what is happening within the environment that's contributing to this problem that you are presenting? So it is a communal thing. And so African-centered black psychology is a dynamic manifestation of unifying African principles, values, and traditions. So it's centered around the realities of our culture and how, and our epistemologies, how we think, how we operate, how we behave. And so it's both. And so we have within our society and at the Association of Black Psychologists the intent of illumination and liberation of the spirit. You will never hear that presented in white psychology. How do we illuminate and liberate the spirit? Because once that is liberated, once it's illuminated, then the spirit takes over and gives you guidance, because now you can hear your own spirit that will be able to guide you in the directions. So how do we go about doing that? We help you unify with African principles, African-centered culture. And so it's not an accident that we intend to help people reconnect. So I do a Sankofa journey to Ghana, West Africa every year. And we don't do a tour. We go through an experience so that people can see one place that we came from and how then we go about this illumination and liberation of the spirit. Because we go from the city back to the old ways that things were that allows us to understand who we are as a people. And so I encourage people to go to sankofajourney.com to look at the pictures and read the testimonies of people who have been on our journey so that they can understand exactly what I'm talking about. We have to ground ourselves in African principles, because that's who we are. And you cannot take somebody else's ideas, somebody else's system to help you heal. It has to be a healing perspective, not a pathological something's wrong with you perspective.
And when you talk about that healing perspective, can you give a little more information when you're talking about psychology, African psychology. Can you talk about the importance of nature?
And that's what spirit is. That's all it is. You know, people seem to think that it's something spooky, but everything in nature has a spirit in it. You know, it can't, whether it be the leaves, whether it be the water, whether it be the rocks, everything manifests with spirit. And once we get back to reconnecting in that way, appreciating that we've been given everything that we need for life. So therefore, we have been given everything we need for healing. And so we function out of principles of harmony with the universe as a natural order of existence. That's what African psychology is. We rely on the principles of harmony within the universe as a natural order of existence. How nature functions is how we function as well. And so when we reconnect with nature, we begin to, you know, people talk about the old people being able to hear things because they have given up a lot of worldly stuff, and they're about to transition back to ancestorhood. And in so doing, they reconnect again with nature and with spirit, and that helps to heal. And so, yes, everything in nature is a part of what we have been given for our own healing, whether it be the herbs. And so, you know, I just had someone call me this week who was put on psychotropic medication, and I had to let her know, you can come, but I don't deal with that. I don't believe in that. I understand it. It does not assist us. It interferes with our spirit. And so once we can find the formulas to help to liberate the spirit, then spirit will take over and help the healing to occur.
Dr. Kambon, you know, Reg just mentioned several things to you that are involved in our whole experience here that have translated into different forms in our lives, and some of it has translated into negative, come out in a negative form and how we relate to one another, whether it's men, women, or children. I want to throw something else in the mix because we had a call last week. Well, I'll set it up by reading this statistic that I pulled off of the Association of Black Psychologists website. It says 81% of black adults from 25 to 74 reported that they have experienced at least one incidence of day-to-day discrimination or major racist event constantly, you know, in their lives, whether it's hassled by police, denied or received inferior service, discouraged by teachers from seeking higher education, or other incidents in their life. Now, last week when we had the young ladies on talking about the event that they were having on Delaware State campus, a gentleman called from New Orleans and talked about the gentleman in Dallas, Micah Johnson, that unleashed and killed police. Mm-hmm. And he was talking, first I thought he was just mentioning an incident, but as he talked, I think he was having some trouble adjusting to some things. Brother Rez jumped in and told him about a brother that had been on our program that's from the New Orleans area that he could probably sit and talk to. Talk about how these things, now I'm not trying to say by any means that men that lash out at oppression or oppressors or something is mentally wrong with them, because we've had men, whether it's Denmark Vesey, Nat Turner, Gable Prosser, and others that have done similar, and they're not mentally ill and weren't mentally ill. But talk about how our people can understand and try to deal with these things possibly in another way sometimes. I don't know how to put it, but I think you can understand where
I know where you're going.
Okay.
You know, and that's why I said that we have a different way. We talk about illuminating the spirit rather than the pathology if something's wrong with you.
Okay.
Because, you know, for the European term of what is that, if I can think of it? Paranoia. If black people weren't paranoid, they would be crazy, because you cannot live in a society like this that's continually trying to kill you, and you see that, that's oppressing you, that doesn't allow opportunities for you, that every time you try to rise up to take care of yourself, they're there to crush you down, that talk against you and not have some feelings that something's going on. That's healthy paranoia, you know? And so that's not a disorder. And so as you talk about this young man, you know, we over and over again, we either see or hear about these murders, you know, and this is modern day Ku Klux Klan behavior. And it truly is Ku Klux Klan behavior that's in these police departments. People's hearts are affected. Our people, if they have a heart, have to be affected by every one of these murders. Because if it can happen to one, it can happen to all of us. None of us is safe from that. And so, you know, as we talk about these emancipation circles that Association of Black Psychologists has, there may be one in the area to help him understand that he's not alone in these feelings, and that collectively we need to be doing something collectively about it, that we can't continue to stand around and watch us be murdered. There's some very healthy things that we can, well, I don't want to get into. There's some things that we need to can do economically, but before we can do anything economically, we have to get our minds right. Okay. Otherwise, we're going to take those dollars and use them for trappings, the kinds that I talked about, and give it right back to the people who are instead of building. There's a group called Us Lifting Us. Their whole goal is to put pull together monies to build retail and businesses that can hire our own people. And as you know, Let's Buy Black 365, they have pulled together all these strategic partners who are committed to hiring black people and to developing not only their businesses, but each other's businesses so that they can grow to a place where we can be hiring ourselves. And so we may not be at a place where we can get the majority into that yet, but we need to be doing it. We need to be thinking about it. We need to, you know, for example, I don't think boycotts in and of itself is sufficient, but if we boycotted this country for 1 week and did not go to work, did not use any of their resources, this country would be shut down. We could then take that money that we would have spent in that week and at least develop one hotel or one convention center or something that would, or one factory or one manufacturing something or other. We have blacks with money, but we don't yet know how to pool those resources to create industries. And so, yes, that man is righteously hurt, emotionally hurt, with the pain of the suffering and the genocide against our people. That is not mentally imbalanced. That's a healthy reaction. But we don't want it to paralyze him, to cripple him, or for him to do something thinking that he is out of his mind. It's the world that's coming against him that are out of their mind. And we want him to be able to distinguish between the two. So, like, my practice is ONIPA, ONIPA.com. I'd like people to go there. That's my psychological practice. I'd like people to join us on the Sankofa journey. I'm also speaking at the Institute of African-Centered Thought in Washington, Seattle, Washington, on the week of the 10th and 11th. So I'd like for people to really get on board with hearing these concepts, with understanding them, and to do their own research. It's not just about listening to others talk. It's about action. You've got to understand that what we're talking about is real. You are not inferior because you are in the majority in this world. So stop calling yourselves minority. You are not the minority. You are in the majority. And being in the majority, you rule. And you need to walk like rulers, walk like kings, walk like queens, and raise yourself to that high level. You know, we see ourselves sometimes when we get all dressed up just strutting it. Well, we should strut it every day of the week. because you are divine. We are the divine beings that the Creator put on this earth to save this planet. And we must take that responsibility by first saving ourselves and then each one teach one.
Dr. Kambon, can you stay with us a little bit longer?
Oh, yes.
Brother Ed, you want to take a break, or you want to jump in with another question or comment?
Yeah, I want to jump in with a question before I forget.
Go ahead.
When you talk about us being divine, you know, I always think about when we say that we're the first here on this planet, all the things we've done with our African worldview, our cosmology, and the list goes on. And I always go back to our morality and how we treat each other, how we view each other, how we think about each other, and the actions that come out of that. And I want you to just speak about that a little more, because I think it's very important, because you can't be in our best behavior or saying that we're the progenitors, everything, majority of the things that we see in this world, the first of most of the things that we see in this world, and don't think like that, don't speak like that, don't act like that, and don't communicate like that when it comes to dealing with each other. And then we
Absolutely.
we'll take a position of trying to be on our so-called best behavior when we're dealing with other folks, and having a disdain or having these preconceived notions about when we interact with another brother and sisters. Well, he's another nigger, another Negro, another shyster, you know, another con artist, another liar, you know, all these negative things before you have a chance to walk down a road a half a block, 600 yards or a mile with a brother and sister. We have all these things inside of our minds. I want you to talk a little more about that divinity piece.
There are terms in white psychology talk about projection. You know, a lot of times we project onto people feelings that we have about ourselves. And so the self-hatred that many Africans had typically gets projected onto others. But there is a reality, too, that, and I heard this from a young woman last week. She said, the problem isn't that I don't love myself. I love myself 100%. It's just that a lot of the brothers and sisters I run into don't love themselves. And so that's what I mean by projecting. When you don't love yourself, you tend to mistreat others because of how badly you feel. And so that's why the healing has to begin first with self and then collectively, so you can understand who you are and whose you are. Once African people understand where they have truly come from and begin to adopt those ways again, then it would be very hard for you to lash out at someone else who looks like you. There are whole communities in Africa where they don't have any of these issues because they're homogeneous. You know, the values, the morals, the behaviors, there are rules for those. And there are rules that put you in place, and they're accepted. We're in a foreign environment that doesn't like us and has assisted us not to like and trust each other. We know a lot of this mistrust has come out of our enslavement. When we had overseers who looked like us, we know that there were some who sold us into enslavement. The behaviors that happened with our brothers not being able to protect us during slavery, a lot of it came out of, it's time to heal from all of that. We can't keep telling that part of the story. It needs to be told so we can get it out of us if it's still within us. And, you know, one of the things that we don't talk about a lot that continued for a long time is the rapes that affected sisters. Yet they had to be resilient and take care of the family anyway. And a lot of sisters hold that against the brothers, even though they may not be totally conscious of it. The mistrust. So we have to deal with that mistrust that we have for each other. And it begins by first loving self. When you love yourself, not as just a person, but as a divine African person, and you understand what that divinity means, then when you look at your brother and sister, you can see the divinity in them. And even if they have not yet risen to that occasion yet, your interaction with them by modeling it and being that way helps them to rise too. So when they're out there fronting, they can front a divine person rather than a fool. And that's part of the psychological development. The healing process must occur, though. We can't try to skip over that. And so a lot of these sessions that Dr. Grills and the community of Healing Network do create, and you may have known about them in during the rebellions in Baltimore. They came out and worked with people there, with people around some of the murders, is to help people understand, no, you're not crazy. The feelings you have are real, and this is why. At the same time, it's time for us to rise above these, because there's work to be done. We have a whole race to heal. We have a whole nation to heal. We have a whole world to heal and preserve, because we are the only ones who are going to do that. And it starts with each and every one of us.
So I'm enjoying this conversation immensely, and I do have a follow-up question. So if you have a brother or sister that are at a stage of understanding their divinity, the work that they have to do in the community, and how they should relate, to other people that might not be there yet, but having an empathetic stance, and also being patient with our folks that are not there yet, but understanding what's inside them. That individual, how should that individual relate to others that are outside of our community that we're building up? Since we're the progenitors, everything, and we're the first partakers in everything when we talk about spirituality, how are we supposed to relate to everyone else in the world outside of our community that's trying to wake up and build and become divine?
Everyone else other than African people you're talking about?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, first, I believe that you gotta work in your own community before you can do anything outside. Mm-hmm. There's too much of an emphasis on trying to form coalitions. You can't form coalitions with people who are not about your purpose. Your purpose is to promote African values with people who look like you, who haven't yet risen to the occasion of understanding that. That's your first responsibility.
Great.
And you model that. You model it through your behavior. And then if you're not able to do it, you get with others like that so that you can form groups. And then you, like I said before, you can do it in the family, one-on-one, the husband and wife, the boyfriend and girlfriend, reading certain things, being in groups like this one in Baltimore, where you come and you learn information that you may not know. Then you go back and research it yourself. Don't just believe what someone else says. Go back and research it yourself. Find ways. So, everybody who knows me tells one of the first things I have people do is to create an altar to your ancestors, because they are the ones who are there to protect you. And you need to know how to relate to them. You are not here in this world alone. And even though people, may talk about, well, how did they let us get in this position? Forget all that. We can find out. We can talk about that later. Just begin a process. And that process will help you to reach your own divinity. And when you reach your own divinity, people will see it. Now, I'm not going to say that it will affect everyone positively, because we have some in our community who have gone so far that the best thing for them would be to leave this planet. I'm not advocating for anything, but, if they're going to destroy us, then we don't need them. Mm-hmm. If their collective purpose is to destroy us, and I mean that in terms of people who bought into things like the FBI and the CIA and other kinds of mad behaviors, even not all, but some gang members who've been put into those positions to destroy our community. You know, everybody doesn't go because they're in pain. Some go because they've been paid to go there to destroy our community.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to call for their destruction. You know, there's a lot of power in the African community. And one of the readings that we need to read about the most, Dr. Wade Nobles just put out a book about Haiti. I can't think of the title now. But if we understand about the revolution in Haiti, then you can see the power that African people have and why Haiti still hated today.
Mm-hmm.
Because they collectively, all African people, destroyed their oppressor.
Yes, and they don't talk a lot about the high priest and priestesses that were in the front of in the back. That we didn't have the Haitians didn't have the most weapons at that time, but we had supernatural power that was going on, that was tapped into for us to be able to win and take vengeance at that time. And that's something I don't see that is talked about a lot. My father,
it's spirit power. It's what we are talking about, but people don't understand it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it is supernatural, but it's not supernatural. It's not more than natural. It's using the other realm to assist us. And because our people know that we're not just living here alone. Mm-hmm. Life continues 360 degrees, so that there are people on the other side, as well as the human people, as well as the animals, and that we are all in a family together. And so when we need help, you can't go out there alone. But because we've been taken away from what is ours spiritually and been given religion in its place, we follow other people's doctrines instead of what we understand in here. And then because of that, too, because we don't understand our own, when we begin to feel this way, we put it into that understanding of religion instead of understanding its spirit that's talking to us.
And my final question before we go to break, Brother Elliott, for our guest. When we talk about the relationship between black men and black women, it's a word that I want to put out there, and I just want to get your thoughts about it. You kind of talked about it already, but I just want to emphasize this. I think it's a necessary thing for us to keep talking about. You know, black men, when you're talking about black men abusing or taking out their frustrations on those that they should be caring about and supporting, they're doing that as a means of control because they don't have any control when they walk out their doors. And you go vice versa when the women are trying to tap into their divinity, and sometimes they, as you stated, they have to take the lead. Sometimes they have to walk side by side. Sometimes they have to, follow up in the rear. But all three of those positions instill a sort of a control that they have to take in making sure that the family or their man or their children they're dealing with are successful in whatever they're trying to accomplish. What can we do? What suggestion can you give as far as this thing when we come together and not getting crazed with our ego and wanting to always have full control? I know having control is necessary at times, but I think that is a detriment to us being able to communicate with each other properly, because we always want to have either the final say or the one up, or want to have a type of feeling, I'm not going to say superiority, but a feeling of that nothing's going to be taken out underneath our feet like we'll be taken out by our oppressors.
Well, usually that results from insecurity, the need to control someone else. You explained it both ways, though. You are in control when you have to take on certain responsibilities. But you also talked about the control when you're not going to let nobody else, have the final say. You're not going to let nobody else rise above you. That's insecurity. You know, because once you felt secure, you know, you could just, okay, she's talking now. She might not be right, but I don't have to say anything. Let her get it out, because you don't know what she or he went through that day, that they just got to let it go. She then or he later needs to say, I know I went off. I apologize. You know, can we talk about now? Men or women are different. Women like to talk. Men don't typically like to talk about things. But there's sometimes when you do need to, you know, just come together and find your way of communicating that I made a mistake and I'm ready to get back on my right foot. And that you can sometimes appreciate without them even saying that they recognize that, because your normal way of operating is to respect each other. So once you have respect in that relationship, then sometimes you may not 100% of the time operate in the manner in which you should. But then people will know that it's an aberration rather than your normal behavior. And so they're willing to, you know, or even say to you, what's that about? And then you can check yourself, you know. That's once you're secure. But if you're not secure, this is another affront. Okay, I get it from my job, I get it from the streets, and now I'm getting it from you. No, I'm not taking it. And I'm going to come at you to get rid of all the pain that I felt in every other place. That's insecurity, based on the reality of the way the world operates against us. But it's still insecurity. So we've got to find ourselves in a more secure place. But I'd like to speak a little bit more about relationships, too, because our goal in coming together should be about creating the most harmonious environment for each of us to live in. How do I try to make sure that happiness exists here within the reality of this world for each of us? And both people should be thinking of that. How can our children begin to see us model behavior that will give them the strength to be able to pursue the goals that they were sent here to do? Not that I have for them, but that they were sent here to do. How do I just create that kind of environment? Because that environment has to be our harmonious environment, where they see, yeah, that maybe mom and dad can disagree, but they're not knocking down. They're not calling each other out their name. They're not knocking each other down. They're not disrespecting each other. And so, therefore, that helps me to know how to be able to resolve problems in a way that's going to benefit rather than take away from who I am.
You know, we're going to take a brief break, and when we come back, the classroom door is open, so you can ask the question at 215-253-7263. That's 215-253-7263. African-centered child and family psychologist Dr. Mawiyah Kambon is with us in conversation this evening, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Black Talk Radio Network. For podcasts and live program scheduling, visit us on the web at blacktalkradionetwork.com.
All Insurance Incorporated, an African-American owned and operated insurance agency in business for over 20 years, located at 231 Southeastern Road in Glenside, PA, with other offices in Germantown and West Philadelphia. Call now for commercial insurance quotes, homeowners insurance quotes, automobile insurance quotes, notary and tax services, representing over 15 major A-rated insurance companies, offering a discount on all notary services when you call in for a free quote. Call this number, 215 215-885-2444. That number is 215-885-2444. 215-885-2444. All Insurance Incorporated.
Before your roof becomes unruly, call Dooley. Dooley Brothers, specializing in shingle, rubber roofs, gutters, downspouts, and vinyl sidings. Call for your free estimate today. 215-224-3882. That's 215-224-3882. Dooley Brothers Roofing, the roofing experts you can trust. That number again, 215-224-3882. 215-224-3882. Before your roof becomes unruly, call Dooley.
What if we didn't let mainstream media pretend hundreds of black leaders don't exist as their way to prevent us from realizing our collective struggle and our strength? Picture it. If we really knew, what would real black unity look like? Visualize it. What if the black world could put aside our differences and come together to not just talk, but to truly create solutions? Converge on Newark, New Jersey for the historic State of the Black World Conference, the interorganizational black unity event of the century. Join us November 16th through 20th, 2016. 5 full days of strategic and tactical collaboration sessions to take back control of our communities and resources worldwide. Don't just wait for someone else to solve our problems. Become a part of the solution. The State of the Black World Convention, November 16th through 20th, 2016, Newark, New Jersey. Register today at www.letsbuyblack365.com/event/SOBWC.
Peace. This is Professor Griff, the Public Enemy. People keep saying black people need to do this and black people need to do that. Well, frankly speaking, I think it's a whole lot of talk, a whole lot of philosophy, and a whole lot of head nodding. But where is the action? I'm suggesting everyone that's within the sound of my voice, we need to get on board with this national black economic empowerment movement. Let's Buy Black 365.com. That's Let's Buy Black 365.com. This is Professor Griffin, Public Enemy, and I'm out. Peace.
Antiquity to the present. Our people need to develop a new paradigm. It's time for an awakening. Sundays, 7 p.m. with your hosts, Elliot and Reggie.
The higher you build your barriers, the taller I become. The farther you take my rights away, the faster I will run. You can deny me, you can decide to turn your face away. No matter, 'cause there's something inside so strong. I know that I can make it, though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone. Oh no, something inside so strong. Something inside so strong. The more you refuse to hear my voice, the louder I will sing. You hide behind walls of Jericho, our lies will come tumbling. Something inside so strong, so strong. I know that I can make it, though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. something inside so strong. And I know that I can make it, though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone. Oh no, there's something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong.
Welcome back to Time for an Awakening. We're joining conversation this evening with African-centered child and family psychologist, Dr. Mawiyah Kambon. The classroom door is open. Don't peek inside, come inside. You can give us a call, ask a question at 215-253-7263. That's 215-253-7263. 6-3. Dr. Kambon?
Yes.
I want to ask a question, and I know that you can answer it. You know, Reg talked earlier about certain behaviors that he realized that he had to fight through when he mentioned about the conscious community and behaviors that come out in us that clearly come from our former chattel enslavement. And I want to mention this because I want to get your opinion on it and talk about it from a African-centered child and family psychologist perspective. We had an incident, I guess maybe a month and a half ago, where a football player that plays for the San Francisco 49ers, a young black man that has a black father and a white mother, that decided that that he was going to protest the playing and singing of the national anthem, that he was going to sit down on the bench when everybody else stands, including other black players, stands with their hands over their heart, crying and sobbing when the anthem is played. We talked about it in our program, and I was surprised and somewhat shocked at some of our listeners that called and the things they said in reference to lighter-skinned black people. I mean, that's some of the things that I guess that Brother Reg is talking about, where, you know, you're conscious of things, but behaviors that our people suffered comes out in conversations. Because a lot of the times the only reason they objected to the actions of the man, it was because he had a white mother. It's clear when you look at him that he's black. He got a little fairer complexion than most blacks, but he's still a black person. He identifies as being black. But the vitriol that came out in some of the callers towards the man, I was surprised. I don't know about Brother Reg, but I was kind of surprised. Talk about that, because that's another vestige of our chattel enslavement that our families don't talk about. And when I say don't talk about it, they talk about it in certain ways. My parents, and I'm of a certain age, when I come along, some of the parents wanted you to date young girls that was fair skinned. If you brought somebody dark skinned home, they didn't like it. Some parents voiced it that they didn't like it. So this thing has been in our families that haven't been talked about for quite some time. But the thing that I want you to talk about it from another perspective, and an African-centered child and family psychologist, is that a lot of our women that this happened to, I'm talking about during our chattel enslavement, there's nothing they could do in reference to what happened to them. But they did love these children. Some of these children you couldn't tell whether they were totally African or not. An example is Frederick Douglass. Now, Frederick Douglass was the son of one of those quote-unquote slave masters. But he had no qualms about who he was and what he felt towards his people. So talk about this from your perspective, because it really kind of shocked me and bothered me when I heard people that I know have better sense talk about it from a perspective that they did.
Okay. So you knew incorrectly, because if they had better sense, they wouldn't have done it. But you're absolutely right. And it comes from two perspectives. One, we have this hatred of our oppressor, and we see it in light-skinned people, those of us who are, and so it gets transferred onto them. And then we also feel that they have had more privileges, so the hatred goes there, that they will get more privileges. So it's, again, not being comfortable within yourself that you can then take and hurt someone else. I mean, the other light-skinned person we saw do something similar was the brother from Black Lives Matter who spoke at the awards. And, we had that same kind of venom coming out against him when he was willing to stand up. Yet when we had in the Olympics many years ago during my time, brother, I can see him with his fist raised in the air.
Tommy Smith and John Carlos.
Tommy Smith. Mm-hmm. We felt he was dark-skinned, but there was still some people who did not go along with it because they saw themselves as American and said that he should not have done that. So we're confused, and that's where it is. A lot of confusion. The whole thing about colorism is a significant problem within our community, that both for the person who is light-skinned and for the person who is not. Some of our light-skinned people are upset that they can't be considered white, Mm-hmm. And then some of our dark-skinned are upset that they're not light enough to be considered white and aren't given the responsibility. So it's a result of being in a confused state of mind as a result of being in a society that doesn't appreciate Jesse Williams is who I'm thinking about at the awards program. So, he was strong enough with his white mother and black father to stand up and talk about this in a way that others who could have did not. And so some feel, well, he gets special privilege so he can go out there and do it. We have to take that right to do and say whatever is necessary and appreciate all of those among us who are courageous enough to stand up and do the right thing and support them 100%. And we must talk to those who can't understand that about what's going on with them. How could we possibly talk against someone who's speaking the truth? Regardless, this is not someone outside of our race speaking for us. This is one of ours who identifies himself as black, who had no choice in the circumstances of his birth, but both of them identified themselves as black. I don't know what the football player thing is, but at least Jesse Williams, I'm not going to say at least, Jesse Williams is married to a black woman. So he definitely identifies with being black. And we, regardless of whether you agree with every single thing they say, if they're speaking positively toward things that are moving in the direction that we claim we want to move, it's not even a matter of jumping on their bandwagon. You can just look at them as a model for your own behavior. Because what does that mean that we then engage in condemning someone for something that we ought to have been doing? And we're afraid to. And I think that's where a lot of it comes out, our own fear. And then our own, not necessarily as strong as hatred, but our own lack of self-worth and our feelings about that we are afraid to step forward to do what's right when we know it's right. That we will talk about things, but our actions don't follow them. And we are not, and no one has a right to talk about anybody who's not doing what they need to do. So if I'm out there spending my money with my oppressor and not with other black people and can talk about them in terms of how the lack of quality in their services, but I'm not doing anything to assist them, then that speaks more to you than it does to the business you're talking about. When you're talking about this brother, if you're speaking, when he stands, I mean, this is not new behavior. It's kind of new now. But all through the 60s and early 70s, many of us did not stand up when the national anthem was played at these events. My children learned not to stand up because we didn't stand up.
Okay.
And so this behavior is coming around again because we're beginning to feel ourselves again. We're beginning to feel the power that we have. And it comes out first. He's now a model for that. And it helps empower some to realize that this is a protest that I can engage in. It shouldn't stop with that, but it is a protest. How do you stand for a flag and a song that even has a racial verse in it against us? How do you raise your hand over your heart for a country that has allowed, if not condoned, racial hatred, your enslavement, and your genocide?
Brother Reg?
I'm here. I'm just enjoying what I'm listening to. I can't add anything to that.
Dr. Kambon, you mentioned a couple of things, and you talked around it when I said that you mentioned it. And Brother Reg mentioned it. I'm going to throw it out again because it's movements going on. Let's Buy Black365.com. You mentioned the other movement that a friend of Brother Reg is involved in, and he was on the program, Us Lifting Us.
Mm-hmm.
It's movements going on.
Yeah, that's Brother Kima.
Yeah,
out of Atlanta.
To get our people to start changing their behaviors and their spending habits. But as a African-centered child and family psychologist, you know better than anyone that when you talk about economics, you need not only collaborations, but you need trust. So how do we give our people the coping mechanisms, so to speak, to learn that? For example, people that are there already has to teach some of our folks that are not there how to do this. How do you propose this be done? Because, a lot of our people don't, I don't want to say a lot, a segment of our people don't trust one another. They don't want to invest in one another. They definitely don't want to patronize one another, and they'll go to other people. And some people don't see nothing wrong with that. But people that are conscious see everything wrong with that. So how do we help our people in that state of mind? Do we just go do what we're doing and hopefully they'll jump on board? How do we reach them?
Well, one, even we have conscious people who sneak and do that, so-called conscious people.
Okay.
So, we don't want to put the conscious people on a pedestal.
Okay.
Because we're all trying to climb. And so we all have to get there. And hopefully we'll all get there together. But right now, Us Lifting Us is both of those are good examples. Let's Buy Black 365 is working for the collective. They're trying to engage everybody to do this and putting the responsibility and onus on every individual person to rise to the occasion.
Okay.
So they're opening up to everyone that you can do this. You can take personal responsibility by at least one day a week, going out and patronizing the black business, going into that website and rating them so that other people know how good they are. And that then gives them an opportunity to grow so that you talk to that business if you haven't gotten good service rather than going out and talking about them. to give them an opportunity. But if you spend your money with them, then maybe they can rise to the occasion. Now, that's one perspective. That's trying to make sure that we all engage each other. Then you have us lifting us. They vet their members. They try to find people who are already on the path. And the reason being is they're talking about trying to create something where they don't want people who are going to pull them backwards or have to fight with them to get on board. They already know what their goals and ideals are, and they only want people, black people who feel that way, to move with them. And so you have both things going. In some instances, when you really have your model together, you have to have like-minded people who you can trust moving forward. In my work, in the Community Healing Network's work, we're trying to reach all of our people, to give them an opportunity, because African values are collectivism. It's communalism. We understand that we cannot get to freedom by ourselves. It takes the community to do that. We may lose some on the way, but we know that we cannot reach liberation and success alone. It takes the village, you know. And so I want to say that, too, because we know, but some of our people know, that it was not Hillary Clinton that came up with it. It takes a village. It's an African proverb that was given to her when she was working on trying to create a socialistic health practice when her husband was in office. So that was given to her. It's an African proverb. It takes a village to raise one child.
Let's go.
And so we know that.
Let's go to 773 area code. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Yeah, you got me, brother?
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you for taking this call. First, I want to tell the sister I admire her courage. Many, many times, it pains me greatly to call the show, especially when you have someone as courageous and as astute as this sister. Garvey said, independence and self-determination is based on land. Land is not a lot or a plot. Land is a country or a continent. What's wrong with us is this is not our land. Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street had over 600 businesses. They was doing well. The white man came and burned them down and killed many of them. Rosewood, Wilmington, North Carolina, Slocum, Texas. They stole all of our inventions. My point is this here, real simple. This is not our land. It's not nothing that we are not doing. We are not allowed to participate in this land. Garvey was right. Garvey was right. Garvey said we either go back and reclaim Africa for us and the Africans. Garvey said if we didn't do that, they was going to do away with us here, and then they was going to do away with the Africans. It is going just like Garvey said. Now, it is good and well for us to shop with each other and do what the sisters say and what other people advocate, but it's not going to do no good in this white supremacy land. They have us where they want us. They can do away with us at will anytime they get ready. It's not because of nothing we're not doing. And I just hate to call in and say that, but I have to. We had great people, inventions and stuff. What we got to show for it? But what if we had a land, our own country? We would be a great people.
Well,
brother, we're not going to be a great people in this white supremacy land.
Well, Brother X, I'm going to let her respond.
Okay,
because
brother.
We only got about 7 more minutes.
Okay,
but
brother. Thank you, Cam.
Thank you for your call, man.
For me, it's not an either or, it's a both and. I truly understand where the brother is coming from. Hello?
I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I truly understand where he's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
But what has happened here, you know, there were times, many times when we've been in the majority. We were in the majority on the plantations, you know, And quiet as it's kept, the whites are in the minority in this country. But they have sold us a bill of goods that says, and that's why we can't succeed here, is that we believe ourselves to be minority. We sit and cry at these murders. There's redress. I'm not going to say how that should occur, but I am all for reparations. In fact, I tend to plan to go back to Ghana, or go to Ghana. I don't know if that's exactly where I came from. And I do believe, but if you have been to Africa, you will see that they're suffering from colonialism just as we have suffered from enslavement.
Okay.
So there's no panacea. My son in particular, is a one man trying to reclaim the African mind person so that Africans can understand themselves as Africans rather than trying to imitate the Europeans here and the Europeans in England. And it's a very difficult job. So I do believe that the African continent is our continent, and they're busy trying to get over there and to take that. And we need to do whatever we can to preserve and protect our rights there. But I also believe that this is our country, too, that we were the first ones here. We helped the so-called Indians when they got here, and that we, and I'm not saying this in any kind of pejorative sense, partly is we've allowed it, but there's also something about the universe. The universe rotates in different ways, a time of chaos and a time of ma'at. We are coming out of the time of chaos when they have ruled in the time of ma'at that has been promised to the African people. We can, if we develop the strength, be able to control both places. Choose where you want to be and do the work.
And I have something I want to ask you. And Brother X is a frequent caller to our program, and I heard your response to what he was stating. And my position is always, if we go to the motherland with this mindset that we have,
please.
Okay, so you know where I'm going. So I'm not going to finish my statement. Can you elaborate on that? That's always my position. We always think that we could get there, but have the same type of behavior, and think that magically that something supernatural is going to happen where we're going to start acting right, and we're not.
Absolutely. We're
not doing that here. If we're not doing it here, how's it going to happen?
Please let me speak to that.
Okay,
yeah, I truly believe that. Because there's one of the poets, I think it was Sonia Sanchez, and one was talking about once, or maybe it was Nicky Giovanni, said that he really was disturbed by all the Africans that talked about what they would have done if they were back during slavery. And she talks about how that is a disservice and a disgrace to our ancestors to say that we would have done something better, because she says what we're doing now is probably the same thing we would have been doing then. And so the same thing with the mindset. We go over there. I take groups every year. And people go over there like Americans. I have to tell them, please don't bring nail polish. Please don't bring toxic chemicals to give to the people, because you're destroying them. So now they're a bakery. They're the things that they did not have before, they're beginning to die from. And I remember when the white man first came to this land and went to the indigenous and Native American villages and wiped them all out with smallpox. So we're doing the same thing, because we're taking our mentality, because we've used these hospitals and used these drugs, and introducing these drugs to people over there who used to live off the earth and did not have these problems. So we've got to get ourselves straight before we go anywhere. And you might as well stay where you are and get yourself straight here. Fight the enemy inside before you can even fight the enemy on the outside. Yes, their intent here is to create genocide against us. So what are we going to do about it? Their intent is to take over Africa. So what are we going to do about it? We can't talk our way out of this. We've got to act in every way. And so I again encourage people to come on the Sankofa journey. Go to sankofajourney.com and come on the journey with me and see how we reconnect to the land, how we can reconnect to the ways of our past, because they have modernization there with all the same big $400,000 or $500,000 houses and tall buildings now, which surprised me then over the last 5 years. But they also have a way of life that hasn't changed for centuries. People may call that primitive, but I say staying close to spirit. Our people still have that here. There are people who are particularly in the South, you know that there are 50% of black people still in the South. 50% of all the black people in this country still live in the South. And many of those people came out of families that work close to nature. Not just being farmers, but understand how to use the herbs and things of that, and how to use, like the Haitians did, to protect themselves. We need to start here, where we are. But you're free to repatriate, and there are people over there willing to bring you and help you settle. But don't go over there with this same mindset. Don't go over there looking for America in Africa. You've had privileges here that they don't have and don't need.
Dr. Kambon, I want to thank you for being with us. And before you leave us this evening, it was a wonderful discussion. I really enjoyed it. Before you leave us this evening, give out any information, how people can go to the websites, how they can get in touch with you, the event that's going to be in Baltimore. Give out any information before we wind things down.
Okay. My site, I have two. You can go to Onipa, ONIPA.com. That's my psychological practice. I also have Sankofa Journey, SANKOFA Journey, JOURNEY.com. And I encourage people to come on the journey with us in 2017. That's June 30th to July 9th. Please go on there, pay your deposit, and join us. And also, yes, I'll be speaking in Baltimore. For information, you can call 410-900-7527. The name of the workshop is, what's it called? Power Pack. It's a Power Pack weekend with Imhotep on Saturday. The doors open at 6:30 p.m. He's speaking on Slavery Revisited, African Captives in Revolt. And I'm speaking on Sunday, and that starts at 4:30. The doors open at 4:30 p.m. and at the same place, 4100 Towanda Avenue, and that's in Baltimore, Maryland. So I encourage you to come out, and I really am thankful that you exist, you brothers exist on this program. It's time for awakening, because that truly is right. It's time for us to wake up, to understand the power we have, and stop claiming our oppression. That's how we stay oppressed, because we keep claiming it. We're a collective, communal people. Let's start with ourselves and let each one touch another and rise to the occasion for the purpose that we were sent here, to be free, liberated African people.
Dr. Kambon, I want to thank you for being with us and look forward to the next conversation.
Thank you so much.
We'll be right back.
Good night.
You are tuned in to the Black Talk Radio Network. For podcasts and live program scheduling, visit us on the web at blacktalkradionetwork.com.
All Insurance Incorporated, an African-American owned and operated insurance agency and business for over 20 years, located at 231 Southeastern Road in Glenside, PA, with other offices in Germantown and West Philadelphia. Call now for commercial insurance quotes, homeowners insurance quotes, automobile insurance quotes, notary and tax services, representing over 15 major A-rated insurance companies, offering a discount on all notary services when you call in for a free quote. Call this number, 215-885-2444. That number is 215-885-2444. 215-885-2444. All Insurance Incorporated.
Before your roof becomes unruly, call Dooley. Dooley Brothers, specializing in shingle, rubber roofs, gutters, downspouts, and vinyl sidings. Call for your free estimate today. 215-224-3882. That's 215-224-3882. Dooley Brothers Roofing, the roofing experts you can trust. That number again, 215-224-3882. 215-224-3882. Before your roof becomes unruly, call Dooley.
What if we didn't let mainstream media pretend hundreds of black leaders don't exist as their way to prevent us from realizing our collective struggle and our strength? Picture it. If we really knew, what would real black unity look like? Visualize it. What if the black world could put aside our differences and come together to not just talk, but to truly create solutions? Converge on Newark, New Jersey for the historic State of the Black World Conference, the interorganizational black unity event of the century. Join us November 16th through 20th, 2016. 5 full days of strategic and tactical collaboration sessions to take back control of our communities and resources worldwide. Don't just wait for someone else to solve our problems. Become a part of the solution. The State of the Black World Convention, November 16th through 20th, 2016, Newark, New Jersey. Register today at www.letsbuyblack365.com/event/SOBWC.
Peace. This is Professor Griff, Public Enemy. People keep saying black people need to do this and black people need to do that. Well, frankly speaking, I think it's a whole lot of talk, a whole lot of philosophy, and a whole lot of head nodding. But where is the action? I'm suggesting everyone that's within the sound of my voice, we need to get on board with this national black economic empowerment movement. Let's buy black. 365.com. That's letsbuyblack365.com. This is Professor Griffin, Public Enemy, and I'm out. Peace.
Antiquity to the present. Our people need to develop a new paradigm. It's time for an awakening. Sundays, 7 p.m. with your hosts, Elliot and Reggie. Welcome back to Time for an Awakening, and I want to thank our special guest this evening, African-centered child and family psychologist, Dr. Mawiyah Kambon was with us in conversation this evening. Reg, great discussion with our guests. I mean, I really enjoyed it. Boy, we had a lot of folks out there listening, and I guess they just were sitting in the classroom just enjoying it. I mean, it was an interesting discussion.
As a matter of fact, let me make 2 announcements on the books that our guest was talking about that didn't have the name, the reference. I want to give a special shout out to Brother Kevin for giving us information on our Facebook page. The one book I actually have, I forgot the name myself, Dr. Kunjufu, Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys.
Okay.
That's a great book. I have that in my library. A book I do not have is the book that was referenced, Wade Nobles. It's the Island of Memes, Haiti's Unfinished Revolution, Wade W. Nobles. Got to get that book, The Island of Memes, Haiti's Unfinished Revolution. That's the one of the books that our guest was talking about. And the first one was The Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys by Dr. Kunjufu. which has been a previous guest on our Time for the Awakening radio program.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed it, and next week we'll just continue having guests leading up to the State of the Black World Conference. Next week we'll be joined in conversation with George Frazier. He'll be with us at the 7 o'clock hour next week, and hope you'll be with us and take part in the program. I want to thank everybody for listening to the program this evening. Lively discussion, as always, and we'll be back next week, Lord willing, to continue on this path towards an awakening. Peace.